Yes, it's Todd Mostoller, TODD MOSTOLLER. I'm the executive director of the Pennsylvania Horsemen's Benevolent Protective Association. And essentially what I want to educate the commission a little bit about today is the Racehorse Development Fund and the contraction in the Racehorse Development Fund since our high water mark of fiscal year 11-12. Each year I come before this commission for race dates. You guys are acutely aware that we continue to decline in race days at both Penn National, Presque Isle, and also the standardbred facilities. And why is that happening? Because we continue to read in the papers that gaming is an all-time high in Pennsylvania. And it's a piece of legislation, Act 71, that not a lot of people understand, and they don't understand how that liability of the assessments from the operators is created. And that's where the problem is. In Act 71, 18% of the gross terminal revenue at the Category 1 facilities, which is the racetracks, which currently there's 3 harness and 3 thoroughbred tracks. Cumulatively, 18% of that gross terminal revenue at those facilities is the liability to the Racehorse Development Fund. The problem is we have seen that number decline considerably since 2010-11, fiscal year 2010-11. And why is that? Well, there's been legislative actions that have transferred money out of the fund. But the real issue now is cannibalization. The gaming market in Pennsylvania has changed dramatically since 2017. That was when the Category 4s were authorized, internet gaming. And at the Category 1 facilities, cumulatively, we have seen a decrease of almost $500 million in gross terminal revenue on slot machines. And it's important that we talk about slot machines because that's the only revenues we get. We don't get revenues from any of the sports, any of the table games. It is slot machine revenues only. When they created the Category 4 casinos, they put facilities within the demographics of the existing Category 1 facilities. And a perfect example is Hollywood Casino at Penn National Racecourse. We now have York, which is 25 miles to our south. We now have Morgantown. We have Shippensburg and soon to be State College. Well, there's only so many gaming dollars to go around. And what we've seen strictly at Penn National is we've seen a decrease of $100 million in gross terminal revenue since fiscal year 2011-12. We did $250 million in that particular year in gross slots. This year, or the most recently concluded fiscal year, we did $145 million. Well, when your first calculation from a law standpoint is 18% of gross terminal revenue, and that gross terminal revenue is down $100 million, you see what we're dealing with all across Pennsylvania. And the business model that was created by Act 71 that incentivized hundreds of millions of dollars of investment by my members and members on the harness side is being destroyed. And that destruction is not slowing down. It is only increasing. We continue to see cannibalization from three gaming issues: interactive slots, Category 4 casinos, and games of skill. And there's a slide. It's in your packet. There's a lot of information in your packet. We're not going over all that today. I want to concentrate on 2 pieces of information slides. You can see the slide there. You can find, I think it's slide 17 or page 17, that shows the declines in the Racehorse Development Fund from a standpoint of how it impacts race days. That is the 6 facilities. You can see that from a pictorial standpoint. Every racetrack has had a decline since the high water mark of fiscal year 11-12. The next slide, which is 18, says impact of gaming expansion in your packet. And this is to me, this is a very informative that shows what's happening. You can see each fiscal year since fiscal year 10-11 through 23-24, which is projected. We only have 1 month remaining. A couple things to note. The overall reduction that has occurred since fiscal year 10-11, But the red is the interactive slots gross revenue. From fiscal year 18 to the current fiscal year, the increase in online gaming, that's just interactive slots revenue, this year is going to be more than all the Category 1 casinos combined. And we get no money from that. So what has happened is that cannibalization has put Pennsylvania racing into a situation where we are most likely not going to survive because of the gaming landscape and the change in the gaming landscape. We have been educating legislators for the last 3-4 months on this issue. This is the presentation that we give to them. But Tom had asked me that we didn't feel that the commission really understood the issue and why we continue to see a decrease in race days. I can tell you at Hollywood Casino, I lose 2 race days a month from cannibalization year over year. And it's only accelerating. I think COVID had a huge role to play for people moving to the online gaming site. Nobody had predicted that, but that's reality. And the other interesting piece, if you look at the graph that's up on the board and it's in your packet, for fiscal year 1920, which we all know was a COVID year, from a Racehorse Development Fund standpoint, this year projected, we are only going to be $17 million higher than we were in the COVID year. If that doesn't slap you in the face a little bit to the problem that we're facing, I don't know what does. We were basically shut down for months upon months, every Category 1 facility, and yet we are on pace to only beat that year by $17 million. So I hope you have a clear understanding of what's going on and how it's impacted. And I would entertain questions because this is a very serious issue. And I think you guys, from a relationship standpoint, we certainly could help as far as within the agricultural community and an education to let people know of what the situation is and why it's occurring, because it is misunderstood on the Hill. It's misunderstood in most places. So I would entertain any questions because I want to make sure that you fully understand this issue.
This is Commissioner DeBunda. Excellent presentation. I would ask that Tom Chukas send the entire package out to those who are online so that we have a full report. I don't know if I got that or not. But Todd, excellent presentation. But you used the word "we," so I'm a little confused. Are you speaking on behalf of your organization? Or are you speaking on behalf of the Coalition of Horsemen and Breeders?
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of the horse racing industry and those represented by the Pennsylvania Equine Coalition, which is the industry. That also includes, we're impacted from a purse standpoint. The breeders are impacted. The breeders get 16.67% of the Racehorse Development Fund. We've seen the full crop drop from 1,700 to in the neighborhood of 500 is projected this year. So every participant in the industry, both thoroughbred and standardbred side, is impacted, and that's who I'm speaking on behalf of, Sal. The entire racing industry within the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
You've done an excellent job, but I think again we have Joe Wilson and Jeff and Maddie here. Do they have similar comments? Are they in the same point of view? I'm just asking that question.
I've been asked to represent all the equine coalition, and we are all in tandem with our beliefs and what needs to happen to correct the problem within the Commonwealth. I have not talked to Joe Wilson. You would need to have that conversation with him.
And by the way, Todd, you have done an excellent job at your tracks in making all this work. I've been following that. So you've done an excellent job. Just wanted to commend you for that.
I appreciate the kind words, Sal.
Other questions, comments on the presentation? I guess 2 points, Todd. One is you've shared this presentation with members of the House and the Senate, ag committees specifically? How about appropriations committee?
We have shared with both ag committees, and we continue to educate leadership as well as all the committees. And Secretary Redding, our real message is we are $1.6 billion economic impact, the racing portion. Mm-hmm. And the devastation to the agricultural industry, should this industry fail in the Commonwealth, and we are in the ag building and agriculture being our largest industry, the ramifications of our industry no longer being in Pennsylvania will be dire and devastating to the agricultural industry, as you know. Right? I mean, the ancillary impacts of our industry are far-reaching. There's a lot of information in your packet. I didn't want to bore you with those numbers today, so we are trying to expedite the proceedings. But again, please ask questions.
So just pursuing that, I mean, so is there, what's the answer? I mean, you need more money to come up with this, so there's only so many options to find the money, right? So, right.
There is currently discussions, I'm sure you're well aware, of regulating games of skill. If the Gaming Act is open, there are certainly ways of which our industry can be made whole, and the promise that was made in the original act. The original act was a business model that worked. People invested hundreds of millions of dollars based on that business model. That has now been, it's in the process of being destroyed. And if we were to get back to the high water mark, which was $280 million in the fiscal year 11-12, we believe that that would give the industry the stability and the incentive, and the original promise of Act 71 would be fulfilled. Even though it's been indirect over 20 years, we are hopeful that that original promise and that original legislative intent is achieved, because quite frankly, we were only in operation for 3 years prior to the first shot across the bow, so to speak, with a legislative transfer of $50 million for 4 years to help the budget situation in the state. So we are asking to be made whole under the original promise to get back to that high water mark. And obviously the Gaming Act, or not the Gaming Act being open in conjunction with games of skill may be a mechanism. We're not here to solve the problems. We're simply letting people know of the issue and what the problem is so that they firmly understand it. And yes, we will continue to educate because we have a lot of new legislation. As you know, the legislative body has had a large transition over the years, and we are working diligently to educate the problem as well as help in any way we can for a solution.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? It's an interesting observation, I mean, that Todd makes. I mean, I don't know the exact percentage, but it's probably 70% of the legislators were not here when Act 71 was passed.
Yeah, there's not many of us left.
Yeah, there's not many.
This year, not a legislator, but there's not many of us that are left.
Yeah, for context, I mean, so when you talk about what was sort of the business model and the expectation, the agreement, is you have to go all the way back and build up to the point of what the drivers are, the problem, and then the potential solutions, because there aren't folks who fully appreciate sort of how we got here, and I'm not sure they fully appreciate the impact of the alternative forms of cannibalization, as you note, is having. So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
one of the things that I'd like to remind people is wherever I go, and I keep hearing about the Gaming Act, I like to remind people that the full title is the Racehorse Development and Gaming Act. That was the whole point. So, with that said.
Well said, George.
Thank you. Other questions on the presentation? You've got the full packet. Take a look at it, please. These are real-time conversations. There's a few moments in time where you can influence what the hopeful outcome is. This is a money conversation. This is an amendment to something or an additional financial addition to a budget. So The time is now. Okay. All right, Todd, thank you. Appreciate the presentation. Okay, moving Tom into administrative actions. Yeah.
We have a few motions. The first one, Mr. Chairman, is a motion to approve the simulcast calendars